Hello, I'm Katie Moran, an author, poet, advocate, creativity coach, and social entrepreneur. And this is the Artistic Spirit Podcast, your place for art, mental health, and spirituality. Today, I have a very special guest, Sara Habbab, who is an artist, a creative coach, and also she is the founder of Ethereal Art Collection. She has a YouTube channel, she's active on Twitter Spaces, and she is everywhere you want to be if you're an artist. So, welcome, Sara. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, I am everywhere. It's just like when you put it that way, I am everywhere. Damn, but that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's great. Specifically, if you follow her on her Instagram or Facebook, you will see her daily art. So she started with a 365-day journey where she created a piece of art every single day, and she committed to that, and she finished, and she actually set the new goal of 1,000 days of art. So that's 1,000 days where she creates art every single day, and she posts it every day too. So you can actually follow along on her journey. You can go back and see things she's posted before. She puts commentary on it. So, she leaves the interpretation up to you, but it's so important that she brings those motivational ideas and insights to the work because she is on such an incredible journey, and it's been an honor to witness this journey that she's been on. And I have to say, the best part of my day is when I get to see her piece of art. Sometimes I see it the next day because I go to bed early, but I'm just so grateful that I am connected with her on social media. So definitely look for her links and get connected with her, especially if you love art. Her color palette is so beautiful. You actually can see in the background, if you're on the YouTube video, she has art behind her, and it's her art. So she has prints, and she does conventions. So if you're at any conventions, make sure you look out for her because she has great prices when you're at a convention, great deals. I went to Anime NYC with her, and it was so amazing. She had pop sockets, she had calendar, and actually a calendar that I have with me here that is just so wonderful. So there's so many different ways that she brings her art into the world. And I think if you're looking for ideas to keep you inspired, it really comes in the creating of it. So I'd love to hear from Sara. How do you get the inspiration to create every day?
All right, but first, can I clip that part where you were talking about my art everywhere and everything as a promo for myself? Because I'm like, wow, that's such a promo, and I didn't ask her to do that, so I'm grateful. Thank you. But yeah, daily, how do I stay inspired? How do I stay the course? And what I imagine most people ask when they ask me like, how do you stay inspired, or like what inspires you? They're asking, how can I be creating every single day? They want to know for themselves how they could be on a similar path, because being an artist means that we create things that aren't necessarily out there until we sit down and do the work and create them. And one thing I would say is that it did not start with me committing to one piece of art every day, and this might be a repeated story if someone have watched the previous interview between us, but this is very important for anybody who's encountering us for the first time. And it did not start with committing to a full piece of art every day. It started with commit to 10 minutes every single day, sit down, face the blank paper, page, whatever, be it digital or be it traditional, whatever way, because I've done traditional first and then went to digital. But it started with just like sit down, face that blank space for 10 minutes every day. Does not have to be perfect, does not have to be done. I just have to sit down and do it. And that played a big part of me transitioning into the 365 and into the 1000 days of art. And just knowing that if I sit down and get in the act of creating, it's kind of like art is going to meet me halfway. It's like you meet art halfway in a way. You have to be able to like open enough in a space where you're like, all right, now I'm open. Now come to me. And I'm not saying that it's going to be in 10 minutes every single day, but when just giving myself the grace, and it's okay to just do anything as far as I'm just sitting down doing the act, that gave me freedom to for any expression that's coming through. And from there, became addicted to like sitting down every single day and doing the art and just practicing every day. And started the 365, which started with another member of a community that we're part of online, which is Chanti Town. She was a paper engineer and she was like, hey, now I was thinking about the 365, but I was like, no, I'm not going to commit. I'm not going to say it publicly. And we were on a call with a bunch of people and she was like, do you want to do a 365? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna back down from this. So like I was like, all right, let's do it. So that was January 1st of 2021. And again, when I started with that, I committed that I was gonna show up for art every single day. It didn't have to be perfect or complete. Now in the beginning, it didn't have to be complete, but somewhere at the I think around 50 days in total I've done like maybe 30 to 35 work in progress in 2021. But after that, I was like, all right, I'm going to commit to one finished piece of art every single day. Finished, but not perfect. Not perfect. And that gave me grace as well. Just giving myself those, knowing that I'm committed to this act of showing up versus the perfection gave me freedom to just be able to show up. If we commit to perfection, there is paralysis, like get paralyzed and like, oh my God, I have to live up to a certain standard and things. And guess what? Just showing up every day, your work is going to improve and your standard's going to rise and it's going to rise and it's going to rise and it's going to rise. And suddenly your worst piece today is a masterpiece compared to your work a year ago.
That's so powerful. And I'd love to take any listeners on this journey with me. So I'm just going to bring them to this moment in Anime NYC. So I had known you for a few months and or maybe a year at that point. A year, but you had been creating for not that long, right? It was just in January to November. I mean, now it seems because it's
Daily,
1,000
yeah.
days.
I haven't been
It's 1,000 days.
Yeah, I haven't been creating daily until that point. But before that, I was creating like very unorganized, like very unorganized, not like it would go months and not create anything and then like weeks or like, yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, so we were in Anime NYC and we were sitting there and all of Sara's artwork, beautiful artwork, was in the background behind us. And on the table it had like prints, like I have to say like so many prints, maybe like 500 prints. You don't have to give me the exact number. I'll just indulge here. And pop sockets, magnets, so many products with her art on them. And I remember thinking to myself that I actually knew her before she created any of this art, and just kind of like realizing that I was there for the journey and the person that she literally became, and that she was a different person from when I first had met her on the call, where she was in the woods and it was an accountability call and it was amazing. But that day she stepped into the person that all of her hard work molded her to be, and that all of those art pieces that were just surrounded by us, and people like maybe like 100 people came by and just said, oh, so pretty, so beautiful, amazing artwork. And just thinking that if she didn't believe in herself and if she didn't put in that work, none of that would have existed. And those people who had some like special feelings toward it, because some people said, oh, this is the animal I connect with and like I have to have it, or this like really speaks to me. Just knowing that those people wouldn't have had that joy that day if you didn't believe in yourself. And I think such an important part of this is that piece that you don't know who you will become in a year if you put in the work every day, and if you trust yourself and believe in yourself. Because if you believe that you will be the same person you are today after 365 days of living your purpose, then you won't put in the work. But if you know that you will be that person that you're called to be, then you will put in that work. And Sarah is actually wearing a shirt, Find Freedom and Self-Discipline. And she really exemplifies this because she has went through the journey and she has put in the self-discipline, and she actually can give people those feelings of freedom from looking at these beautiful pieces of art, and just for people to know that their soul is free, and to experience that through her experiencing her inspiration and honoring that inspiration daily and every day. So remember that there's so much of this that is just self-belief,
Yeah.
and just like knowing that self-discipline isn't something that has to be so strict or so stifling. Creatives can grow from knowing that they can trust themselves.
Yes, I have something to say to that. But first, I jumped to show the shirt because, guys, this is Equanimity Boutique. You'll find the link in Katie's bio somewhere, and all
It's in the
Katie,
show
like
notes.
anyway, yes, yes, you'll find it. So get the shirt that speaks to you, because self-signaling is something that is very powerful. But when you talked about you said something about being committed does not have to be. What did you just say right now?
Stifling.
Stifling. All right. So that is something I talk about when I'm like when I'm coaching any creative who want to get consistent on their work, and they're like, "Oh, it's like," they say something similar to like, "It's make it or break it at this point," or like, "I have to," or like, "I have no other choice." I'm like, "Pause." It's a very gentle energy. Creativity comes from that beautiful, gentle energy. So why are we adding stress or like unnecessary um emotion, that energy that's like I have to create. Like, no, there hasn't been a day. If I have approached this journey with a make it or break it attitude, I would have broken. I would have stepped away. I would have been like, all right, I'm done. But it's very important of how you approach it. And something key that you just said is that believing in the future you. Something I commit to is that I'm gonna meet that Sarah every single day, because it's gonna sound something that I talk about sometimes to friends and family, and they're like, that's interesting. And I always, whenever there's something that's like worrying me, or a skill that I'm not good at yet, I literally tell myself I trust future Sarah. And that is like the weirdest thing to tell yourself, or like say it out loud and tell people like, I trust my future self. They're like, what? Like, especially if somebody who's not familiar with like visualizing and envisioning who your future self is and like what you're capable of. And it's important to know that when I say trust the future Sarah, I'm talking about she's growing and she's gonna be showing up every single day. I made a commitment. At this point, making art became part of my everyday. It's like wake up in the morning, brush my teeth, before I sleep, brush my teeth, and between I make art. Of course, eat and do other things, but like, it became something like similar to that. So but with very gentle energy. So it's not something that you have to like add that aggression to.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that's so important. And for me, I think sometimes when you are doing art by yourself, specifically people who aren't connected with the community, people who feel like they have to be a lone wolf in the artistic process, I just want to welcome them to the idea that you can create in community, that it's not always make it or break it when you realize that other people are creating, and that it's a part of the culture of creative communities, and that even if you're not creating in a specific instance, someone else is, and someone is learning what your next step is going to be, and they're going to be there to support you through it and to teach you how to get through it. And that's why Sarah and I created Creativeville, which is a Discord community for creatives.
Yep. Yes. So that's something that we talked about actually for I think for a few months before we made it, because we both were talking about, um, because we're both part of other online communities that are closed. They are behind like a certain wall, let's say. But we realized that it needs to be open for other people, because there are so many artists out there that they think they have to go through this journey alone. And maybe that's the case in the past, but right now, 2022, it's not the case anymore. There are people that are ready to connect with you. There, you will be surprised of how much people are generous with information and they just want to help. If you just show up in these communities, and it's actually a little of a funny story of how Creativeville has happened. I don't know if you want me to tell them that story, Katie.
I'll start it off. So I was really excited that I was gonna start my podcast, and I said Sarah has to be the first episode that comes out. She wasn't the first recorded, but she was the first episode that was coming out. And I think there was a 3-day window between the time we recorded the episode and my release date that I had posted already on social media. So it was public, and I wasn't going to change it. And in the interview, Sarah, do you want to say this?
The last 10 minutes, literally, you guys, the last 10 minutes or so. I don't know if you look at the first interview. We're talking about community, like the importance of community and how important it is. Like, if you're creative, you're going to be part of one. And I said something similar to like, yeah, and if you're not part of a community, actually, Katie and I are making a community. We are launching a community, and you're going to find the link in the show notes or somewhere. Yeah, you played it so good. Because I'm looking at Katie's face and she kept a straight face. She was like, like she just nodded her head like as if like she knew about this already. Meanwhile, it was on the spot. You want to tell them, Katie? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was dying inside because I knew that we had to create this community. We had 3 days to create this community, and probably even less than that because I had to write the show notes for it to actually like have the link ready and stuff. So I was dying on the inside, but I said I don't want to edit this episode, so I just kept my composure, and
I totally took advantage of the fact that you have already committed publicly. I took advantage that you already had a launch date and everything. You could not do this, so I was like, yeah, let's do it. We've been talking about it.
But we did pull it together in 3 days, so it did work out. But yeah, I remember right when I stopped the recording, I was like, what was that?
I feel bad for whoever was listening to audio heard me laugh like that. But we did actually, we started with we not only we launched it, but we launched it with a sprint as well. So it was kind of like, it was a kind of a successful, I would say a successful last second launch of like only 3 days, because we had a deadline and we had to be like very specific of like, what is the intent, like what's the intention of it, what are we doing, and we didn't have time to plan around. So it kind of like, it worked out better that way because we had like that short amount of time to just bring it together and just do something for the community, for the people who will be listening to the episode and they're coming to Creativeville. What are they coming to? And yeah, that's another community started.
Yeah. So can you describe what is a creative sprint?
Absolutely. So the reason why creative sprints are dear to my heart is because that's when I was telling earlier about the 10 minutes a day, that was a thing that was created in a smaller community when I was an artist who, aspiring artist still, for those who are listening, not watching, I'm doing quotation because for the longest time, I did not own being an artist, period. I was always aspiring artist or like artist, but I'm beginning, I'm working on my skills and all of that. And that's where my 10 minutes a day, I was like, hey, put a call online for the small community that we were part of. Any creatives in here that want to go on a sprint with me, like, and actually Katie jumped to co-host that one with me. So like we actually started that. That was the very first, probably we've known each other for like a month or two, and we co-hosted that first sprint and we started that group. And that's when like the habit of daily creation came from. And so what we wanted to implement the same thing in Creativeville. And what we do is that we go on 30-day sprints. So 30-day sprints of creating whatever art discipline, whatever creative discipline that you practice, you can participate. You don't have to be a visual artist, poet, or author or anything. It could be literally anything. We have people from content creators, crafters, we have writers, we have so many different creative disciplines in the community, and you commit to just showing up every day for 30 days. Nothing perfect, and it doesn't have to be done. You just have to touch your art every day for 30 days. And what we do is we post about it in the community. So we have these channels in the server, and when someone posts, of course, we have the guidelines of be encouraging. And if you have feedback, keep it gentle. And if nobody asks for feedback, you don't have to. It's not something that you just have to throw at people. I think those guidelines were important for us to put on the top, just for everybody who's coming in. So yeah, creative sprints are why we do them often, why they're important is because if you're an artist and creative, you want to be creating because that's literally what you are. And if you're not, you're kind of like stopping. It's kind of like you're not living your purpose in a way. If you know in your heart that there is something for you to be making, there is something for you to be showing the world, sharing with the world, not necessarily showing them, but like something that could serve you by making and others by just putting it out there. This is going to be the gentle push that you will get to start putting it out there in a safe community first until you're ready to branch out and just spread your wings and just go share it with the world.
Yeah, I love that. So to recap, it's just creating for 10 minutes a day for 30 days within community. So there's a lot of motivation, cross-pollination that goes on, and it's a great way to really connect and remember that you are not on this journey alone. You are never alone. There's always people you can reach out to, and that there are communities of people that believe in the same things you do, that value the same things you do, and whether that be art or creation or your specific art form, there's so many ways to connect with people. So in the show notes, there will be a link to Creativeville. So if you're there, ask about creative sprints. It's a great way to get involved with other people who also are creatives. So speaking more to that, what is Discord? So that's where we host Creativeville. So what exactly is a Discord for people who've never heard of Discord?
Yeah, so Discord is a social platform where so it's kind of like, think of, if you're familiar with Facebook, think of Facebook group. They're a closed group, right? But instead of a group, it's called a server on Discord, right? So there are these communities that have servers in there. And within the server, there are channels where everything is organized by topic, for example. So for our 30-day sprints, we have the you would have the daily sprints guidelines, and you'd have general chat, and then you have all the different channels for each discipline. And then I think we have a resources channel, and you could have anything, like literally channels for anything that you want. And the reason why we like Discord is because it's very organized for that reason. It's like you could see, if you're interested in posting your art, you could post it in visual art. If you're interested in posting your music, you could put it in the music. And if you have a resource that you want to share, you came across a good video or a good anything, you could put it in the resources. So it's a very organized place for communities to be together in one platform. I think that is all about it. Oh, and there are options for you to be it, they call it an event where in voice, like some people could be on the stage talking and other people in the audience. Of course, there is a chance for you to be from the audience to the stage. And there are channels where you could actually co-work together. So let's say I want to be drawing and Katie want to be writing. Like I could be sharing my screen, we're talking voice, and she's writing and all of that. So it's a very helpful social platform. um yeah.
Yeah, and I would say for the person who specifically is trying to get away from scrolling on social media and feeling like everyone puts everything out there on social media, they may not have a Facebook anymore because they felt like it was mindless scrolling, things like that. This is a good platform because it's organized. You just go where you need to go. So you really go to what you're looking for. You can turn off notifications. So it's not something that you addictively check. It's not something that interrupts your life. This is really the social platform for people who do not like social platforms.
True. That is so true. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and also if you like social platforms, you can put links to your social platforms. You can connect with the people in Discord outside of social platforms. So there's really something for everyone. And also what I like about it is that there's like a poetry section. So if I'm working on a poem, I'll put it in the poetry section. If I'm writing that day, I'll put it in the writing section. If I posted a podcast episode, I'll put it in content creation. So it's just such a great place to kind of like track progress and update the community. So I really love that about it. But moving on to a different area. So Sara Habbab is an NFT artist. So with her digital art, she also uploads it to OpenSea, and you can buy it on OpenSea. So I know not everyone understands what NFTs are. Some people have never heard of NFTs. So Sara, if you could just explain in the most basic of terms what being an NFT artist means.
All right. So I asked somebody actually if you could explain NFTs in a simple way earlier I think it was last week. And I love the way they explained it because I ask everybody, like, what is the simple way you explain it? Because it's this new thing and people understand different things differently. NFTs are non-fungible tokens. That means they're digital. You cannot, like, they're not something that you could buy physical. They're digital assets. But the thing about them is that they have certain codes in them. Each one piece has certain code that allows it to do something that you decide or whoever that you bought it from decide. Um, which is a smart contract. That's what a smart contract is. It's the coding that allows it to do certain functions. And being an NFT artist, it's actually NFTs. Artist is an artist, but NFTs is the way to go. Kind of if I want to reward my collectors differently, I would say. For example, like for me, my collection on OpenSea, and if anybody's wondering what is OpenSea, think about Amazon, eBay, but for NFTs. So it's a marketplace, a big marketplace for NFTs only. And how I personally am using NFTs, and of course, every artist using it differently. I'm using it in a way where my collectors will get a physical journal from my shop and they will get an hour of coaching with me one-on-one as a thank you for purchasing the NFT. And then the every 9 NFTs sold from my collection. Now remember, I'm on a journey of 1,000 days of art. I have so much art, so I could actually commit to this easily because I have so much art. But with every 9 NFTs sold, I am giving one iPad, Apple Pencil, and a Procreate program to an artist who's starting out their journey. And the reason I chose those is because if you give iPad, Apple Pencil, and a Procreate to an artist, they literally could go anywhere in the world and be creating. And there's nothing like it's just them and their imagination. And of course, I do have like a form and like questionnaire to see like who needs it and all of that. But that's NFTs is this thing that's allowing any creator really, and companies are jumping on NFTs right now, like everybody's jumping. It's going to be a new technology that will change how we interact and how we live. It's just allowing more transparency with, because of the blockchain, very transparent, so like you could see how companies are moving, if they're like keeping the integrity of what they say they're gonna do, if they're doing it, and for artists to connect more and reward differently their collectors. Because back and another part of it, why I love it as an artist for my own profit, I would say, and for any artist that's out there, is that back in the days we used to give our art to galleries and they would sell them and they would keep a percentage and they will give us a percentage. The artwork is sold. If that artwork resells in the future, we have nothing to do with that transaction. But with NFTs, the way that you can set up your collections and your art is that when somebody purchases your NFT, they're purchasing your art as a digital piece. Of course, if you wish to give them, if you wish to raise your price and offer the traditional piece that you have, if you have a physical piece, you could give them that as well, but that's up to you. But whenever the person who collected your art, they resell it to someone else, as an artist, you can set up royalty that you will get percentage of that sale. So this was never ever done in history of art before, because the art would be sold to somebody, you get percentage, or like you take whatever. If it's not with a gallery, if you sold it directly, still you got paid for it one time, and your creation is not your creation anymore, it's someone else's property. But while here you're still giving your art to someone else, but you still get rewarded for creating that original work. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because art is meant to be rewarded. Because if you think about it, art is the source of inspiration for the world, and then innovation happens. And so that's the reason why I love, and it's a no brainer for anybody. If you're not into in NFTs yet, learn about it if you want to jump on it. And I'll say that I was the most resistant person to NFTs before. And I think I've shared the story in the last episode. I might have shared it. I don't remember. But um yeah, I resisted the idea. And then I kept hearing more and more. And then I sat down, like, let me like really read about this and like understand what's going on in here. Why is everybody like going crazy about it? Like, it makes sense. As an artist, I'm happy that this thing exists right now. So yeah, I went on a tangent about NFTs. Can you tell I'm happy about it?
Yeah, well, I think it's really great to go back to the idea of utility in smart contracts. So you gave the example of, and smart contracts, it's just digital contract that's on the blockchain, and you can put like certain data into it that describes whether it be a utility. So a utility is something tangible that someone can have from it. So Sarah's example is she gives 1 hour coaching sessions. So if you hear utility, that's what it means. And specifically for artists, obviously there's value in just art itself. And I think it's really wonderful when artists have utility in their work so that they can really build community around it.
I love that you said that, because a lot of artists, when I'm in Twitter Spaces, which is another thing that I would love to share with whoever is listening to this episode, because you can't mention NFTs and like all of this information, not mention where they could go for information if they want to learn more, other than us and this episode. And there are people out there that are sharing their knowledge literally every single day, every hour of the day on Twitter Spaces. If you're on Twitter, if you're not on Twitter, go on Twitter. I mean, but if you're listening to this episode, chances are you're from Twitter, because Katie, that's where Katie's kingdom is, kind of, in a way. But I call it a kingdom. I know you're laughing.
It's
All
so
right.
bizarre.
No, because every person shines in like a certain platform, and that's like your platform. That's where you're like, oh my god, I connect so deeply with, like, that's your playground. That's where you are. That's where you shine. It went from kingdom to
I know. I'm
plot.
sure the people
Like,
listening are from Twitter.
that's what I said. But yeah, if you want to learn more about NFTs, jump on Twitter Spaces. There are plenty of people that are sharing information literally every hour of the day. I'm not kidding. Like, literally, you go on there, is on top of there are spaces. But I love that you shared that your art in itself doesn't, like, you don't need to add utility if you don't want to, because your art in itself is valuable. Just it existing is valuable. Now, I happen to be a creativity coach. I happen to have journals that I could and I would love to give away. So that's why I added those. But it does not mean that my art is invaluable without these things that I'm giving for my collectors. And it's important that you mentioned it, because I hear in Twitter Spaces artists that come on to present or talk about their NFT project, and they're like, yeah, it's just my art, I don't have any utility or anything. And everybody's like, what do you mean just art? Like, it's your art, it's your work. just it existing, that's the biggest utility and service to the world that you could give. So it's important that you mentioned it. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, I really love how not only does your art have utility, but you are giving a iPad and Procreate and a
An
pen,
Apple Pencil, yeah.
Apple Pencil to an artist for every 9 items that are sold. And I think that's just so wonderful, and that it's incredible that you're really taking everything you've learned from your journey and sharing that with other people. And I think so many times people forget about their own struggles when they find success. And I think it's just so wonderful that you're sharing that with other people and that you're passing on the torch, specifically for people who need the light.
But that's the beauty of any journey, not like not only artists, but anybody. Literally, the reason we learn things is to pass them down. And if we're not passing them down, I mean, you see it in nature. Nature does everything to keep the younger, like the new life going in a way. And like if a plant is I'm gonna give like a random example here, but I had a plant that was dying slowly and I did everything I could to like keep it alive. But what I realized is that what died first were the bigger branches. They started dying and they kept like the plant tried so hard to keep that younger new leaves going and growing. And so it started with like the bigger branches and like the bigger leaves, and then at the end were the smaller leaves. Now I tried my best. I had limited knowledge in plants, so I do regret letting that plant die. But it's that's the example of how we're supposed to the only reason we learn things and get nourished so we can pass it down and make sure that whoever's coming after us keeps it going. And that gets connected to like why are you creating in a way, like, you know, going back to the beginning of the conversation, and um be it intentions. And once you know your intentions, you cannot go astray, and you will do everything to make sure that the people after you keep it moving, keep the knowledge going, keep everything going.
Yeah, I love that. And specifically with creativity coaching, I think it's so powerful to make a difference in someone's life, especially creatives who might not feel like they connect with people or they feel misunderstood. Just to offer a community is something that really can make the difference between whether or not someone gives up. And it's not just giving up on yourself, it's giving up on every person you could potentially impact. And like when you really like start like giving back in that way, like it has so many ripple effects. And I'm so grateful that you can be talking about this today, because I'm sure there's people listening who have ideas that they feel like, oh, it's of no consequence if I give up on this idea, or if I wait to create this, or if maybe I don't have the time now, when they're not looking for ways to maybe get coaching to help find the time, things like that. So just like thinking about that person, what would you say to them who feels like they can give up on themselves and that they're only giving up on themselves?
Yeah, so I'm gonna paint an image, a mental image to anybody who's listening. And you did paint an image earlier of you sitting in Anime NYC and my art behind, and like you're sitting with me on, by me, behind the table. There is art prints in the front, there is art in the back. And you spoke from your perspective of what touched you is that the people that were coming through and all of that. But similar to that moment, what touched me is me looking at and I'm getting emotional here. Like I could literally feel myself like getting tears in my eyes right now. I was looking at the art, be it behind me on the wall or be it in on the table, and I could literally remember the conversations I've had that day I created that art. I could remember what inspired certain pieces. I could remember what people who needed this piece of art, because Katie, I literally lost track of how many people would message me randomly on social media who I haven't talked to in like years, and they'll be like, this speaks about me right now, or like this touched me today, or like this is what I'm going through. And it's very beautiful, fulfilling. If you stop now and you don't create the art that you're meant to, forget about everyone else. If you're not forget, if you don't want to, if you're in a place that I don't want to serve the world right now, and like you're in that place where I'm like not worried about other people, just know that you're holding yourself back for yourself. Like there are these fulfilling moments that I cannot explain in words, of watching three other artists start their own 365 because they saw me complete my 365, watching some children of people around me, their kids are starting their own art journey every single day. It's not about the people, sometimes it's me needing to see that what I doing actually meaningful and helpful to other people. And just know that you're holding your own happiness. If you're not, if you give up on your dreams, like if you give up on the ideas that you have for creating art, you're holding back your happiness, because those fulfilling moments make it meaningful. And it's not only about where you're going to sell the art, or and of course like those are things that we think about. I'm not saying that money doesn't matter, that's not what I'm saying in here. What I'm saying is that there is an emotional fulfilling aspect to it that cannot be touched physically and cannot be seen with the eye, but only you will know. Going to I was talking to somebody, and I was coaching her, and I said that just the fact that I could go to bed every single day knowing I gave it my all is enough for me. Just knowing that I showed up today, that makes me happy. Not attached to the results. Doesn't matter the outcome. And most of the time when we're ready to give up on a certain on a dream, or something that we want to create, it's actually based on an expectation we have of what the result will be of that. Because if we're creating for the sake of creating, you're not going to stop. If you're creating because you want to, you're not going to stop. But the minute that there is something that you're expecting back, or like expect there's an expectation for you to meet and you're not meeting it, that's when, or kind of like the idea does not match the reality, that's when people walk away and say like, oh, I'm done creating, or like this is not for me.
Yeah, I think I really see that. There's so many people who I've seen step away from their dreams, or whether that be because of fear or a lack of self-confidence or a lack of self-belief. I think there's always something different in the people that choose to stay. And I think usually that difference is connection. Like they believe that creating allows them to connect with people. They believe that they are worthy of having a community of people who also create, who are there to support them, who believe in them, who like to see their work. They believe that they can connect with people on social media when they post, whether it be about their book or a snippet of their poem. I think it's really that belief in connection that really fuels so many of the people that I see really makes the difference for them. And, again, like Creativeville is something that is a community that's free that you can join. You can push yourself through creative sprints, and you can also learn from the community. And my favorite part about creative sprints is really that if I can't get to creating that day, like say I did everything I had to do and I just didn't have time to create, I know that someone else is creating. And so much of the time, if we take a day off from something, we decide it's not important anymore. And we didn't do it yesterday, so we don't have to do it today. And I think like it's normal to like slip up, specifically if you're not on like a 365 journey. it's important to remember that someone else is creating, and that the creative spirit is alive, and that there's so much power in that, and that it's important. And so many people become desensitized that creating isn't as important as other things. And just seeing people light up on what they created that day, specifically in community, is so powerful in reminding you that your creation and what you are put on earth to create is worthy of existing.
It is so worthy of existing. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I hope there's a little bit of something for everyone in this episode. So we went over daily inspiration, Creativeville, what creative sprints are, Discord as a platform, and NFT art. So I'll put your links in the show notes, and I really hope that if anyone has questions, they'll ask us in Creativeville, or they'll tweet at us, or anything that they feel most comfortable with. So how would you like people to reach out to you?
Yeah, actually all my links are there. It's not, I was gonna say, if you listen to this episode and the idea of creating every day has triggered you, or you feel like, oh my God, I could never, or like the first reaction you have in your, the first thought that came to mind is like, I could never create for every day for like I don't know how long, then that's a sign for you that there's something inside there that you're actually capable of doing it. It's usually those fearful thoughts that we have in the beginning. Because I remember me myself like looking at some other artists and seeing their work, and I'm like, I could never. And now I'm like creating work that I'm like, wow, I surprised myself. So usually those voices are not true. They're actually more of like a warning for you that, hey, pay attention, there's something for you here. So you might be actually, there might be their capacity in you to create every day. So this is an invite. If any of these thoughts came to your mind, or if you were like, oh my God, I'm so inspired, I would love to, again, inviting you, Creativeville. We love creating and we love watching each other create. Not only that, there are collaborations that are happening in there sometimes, and people would be like, I'm so inspired by. I remember creating a poem. I actually want to mention this. I remember a day when, on the first creative sprint, somebody posted a poem of fire, and I read that poem and I was like, this is wonderful, like this is beautiful. And for whoever knows me, they know I'm like a purple pink kind of girl. Like I always draw purple colors, all shades of purple. But that day, that's when I created the fire phoenix lady with with like the lady who's standing on top of the buildings, like flying, and like kind of a orange color, reddish color moon behind her. And it really inspired me. Even though that's not my style, it helped me step out of what I'm used to, because I was so inspired by that poem that had fire in it. And so you never know what interactions with different art disciplines in the community that will inspire in you, and you will step into like territories that you didn't know that you had it in you. So it's gonna like expand your capacity to create. Again, it's an invite. Join us. I know I'm echoing what Katie said earlier about joining us in the community. But this is my invite. I'm done.
Thank you for that wonderful invite. Yeah, I'll just reiterate, it's a great place to grow in community, to find clarity, and to also hold yourself accountable to being consistent. Thank you, Sarah, so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope anybody who listens to this finds value in it.
I'm sure they will.